Greetings, Stellarisians! I've got a fun one for you. A to Z's. Everyone is doing them for Paradox games now, but Stellaris is a bit different. So I'm going to do one on Origins. And if you know your ABCs, then you know the first one is Broken Shackles. This is the build I'll be playing, the United Freedom Collective. You get egalitarian and materialist ethics attraction from the event path I'll be taking, so I went with those ethics. Parliamentary is for the important unity kick early game, and Vaults of Knowledge is for leader abuse. This origin does give you a sort of scuffed equivalent to parliamentary system, but in testing I found it just wasn't good enough for what I wanted to accomplish. Same extra spicy settings I usually play with, though this time I've lowered the number of AIs, and to make it extra spicy, I've set the endgame year to 2275. Because why not make the challenge origin even more challenging? So this origin is crazy. Your capital starts off borderline useless. It isn't even a real planet to start with. You're capped on city districts and start with these appallingly inefficient jobs without even research labs or tier 2 capital building. But we will fix all of this. On top of all that, you start with stellar culture shock modifier you get from invading pre-FTL planets, but you also get this pretty decent buff. Research labs and tier 2 capital buildings are not researched, so we'll start with those immediately. Corvettes are also not researched, but we don't need them yet. Because of Vaults of Knowledge, we start with one extra level on all our leaders. What we're looking for here are basic resource traits, which we will seriously need in order to kickstart the game. As per usual, switch Diplomatic Stance to Isolationist to boost unity output, and switch to Civilian Economy to stockpile those consumer goods early. I'm also going to sell some food in order to buy minerals, in order to start building a mining district day 1. This is pretty important as you start with no districts at all. Mine are min-max, but these two star-based buildings are completely useless, and removing them will save a couple of energy credits worth of upkeep. This origin starts you off with no ships of any kind, so first off we'll queue up a science ship, which sadly won't even be able to explore yet. Let time tick over until factions spawn, and check out what you've got. I don't normally recommend restarting runs for RNG, but factions can absolutely screw you here. This run is extremely lucky and gave us only egalitarian faction, which I'm going to promote to keep the ethics attraction high. You can suppress other factions you get and slowly switch everyone egalitarian and materialist, but no matter what, it cripples your early game unity, and that's going to be crucial in this run. We could use this science chip to explore, but I've found that it's honestly better to just stick it straight on archaeology. Now that factions have spawned, I'm getting the main species to Utopian Abundance to boost the unity gain. The other species will get this eventually when I can afford it, it's just very expensive on consumer goods. Monthly trades are a really important crutch to balancing your economy in the early game, particularly when it starts as scuffed as this. You will have to manually set the jobs your pops work when the districts are built, because the AI is really stupid and it will prefer to work the objectively inferior ones. As soon as you can afford it, get that first construction ship out, and use it to harvest space resources. Unlike a normal game, you start with no mining stations at all. First tradition doesn't take very long thanks to parliamentary, and aptitude is the obvious choice for leader cheese. As soon as research labs are unlocked, the terrible ones are upgraded. You can start replacing these awful buildings now, but when you do fully fix your planet, they will be turned into districts of the appropriate type, so I don't recommend replacing all of them. Unlike the labs, your capital building does not get upgraded automatically, but doing so manually is your only way to get extra building slots right now. I forgot to swap out the starting agenda this game, but it does boost pop happiness, and faction unity game scales directly off pop happiness. Next agenda is obviously for the unity gain. Building a colony ship before I've even found my guaranteeds. I want to settle them as fast as possible. I'm making a second shipyard too in order to simultaneously build a science ship to go find those habitables. Going down the left side of aptitude first, because the leader upkeep reduction is a direct increase to unity gain. Next building should be an industrial district in order to claw your way out of this consumer goods deficit. If all is well, you should start surveying your first habitable just as your colony ship comes out. They move slowly, so it shouldn't end up waiting around for too long. Getting that planetary administration as soon as the industrial district is done, in order to build another lab. You start so far behind on tech with this origin, it's really important to get them out as fast as you can. I'm pausing and checking the leader pool just before it refreshes. It refreshes every 5 years, so you should do this just before each refresh. Look for resource traits as always. The first UFC colony. Since we're doing leader abuse, it's actually a good idea to take Imperial Prerogative as the first ascension perk. Increasing the leader cap lets you get more resource leaders without hurting your precious unity gain too much. Build your second colony ship as soon as you can afford it. Really need to get the colonies rolling as soon as possible. Second tradition is Prosperity. From here you just play the game as normal. Prosperity, Discovery, and Supremacy are the 3 best tradition trees in the game. The nice thing about this origin is the abundance of different species you start with, which enable you to colonize pretty much any world and get good habitability, which is really important. The aim of leader abuse is to depend on them for basic resources, so these first few planets are going to go hard on industry and research. Just be careful with that. If you greed for advanced resources on too many planets, you can find yourself in a nasty deficit later on. This is the archaeology site now finished, which unlocks a decision that lets us turn the capital into a real planet. It costs 2,500 minerals and doesn't give you all of those, so I recommend you stockpile a bit so you can start the 900-day decision straight away. Around the midpoint of the agenda, you want to spend Unity to fire it, then switch over to the Leader XP one, which is very critical for this strategy. Now though, you should just be about pulling yourself out of the slump and playing a more ordinary game of Stellaris. I made my first AI, and though I don't ordinarily like to do this, I'm gonna get a little bit cheesy with them just for this run, considering how painfully the start is. They love your favours and are willing to give you some very silly things for them. You need a lot of energy credits and stockpile around year 30, so this helps. Buy as many resource leaders as you can, going over the cap doesn't matter, and then as soon as you can afford to, fire this agenda early. Now all the leaders level up, and you can give your economy a pretty substantial boost for nothing. This is what I meant by leader abuse. From here on though, stockpile your Unity. Do not spend a drop, not even on traditions, and I'll show you why. From mid-game year, you start to get the special origin events. For me that means 22-25, which makes this quite difficult. There are two paths you can take here. If you do the committee, it essentially ends the event chain here after one more event in a special project, and it gives you a 20-year long buff, which is decent, but I have other plans. You should always pick the options that don't place any limits on your population's freedom. This event is the reason you need to stockpile Unity and energy credits this early, assuming you're playing 22-25 mid-game like I am. If you don't pick the expensive option, or the event times out, which it does after about a year or so, you get a horrible alternative where your pops start to riot. You gain huge devastation across all your planets, and a massive reduction to pop resource output. If that happens, the run is dead. There is no recovering from that at this crucial juncture. You have to take the expensive option here. You don't need to take it right away though, just drag it to one side, and if it only takes a few months to stockpile the Unity, like in my case, you'll be fine. This is one of the two buffs you can get for allowing the brain drain to continue. As you can see, it's quite good. Eventually you do meet your former overlord, them in a more specialized industries, and you have no option for peaceful relations with them. Cybernetic Ascension is a really good path to take with this build. It boosts habitability and leader lifespan, keeping our overpowered resource leaders around for longer. This is the final reward for taking this path through the event chain. The buff is excellent, and it's permanent. It's the only saving grace of this origin, really. You can reform your civics as early as year 20, but in order to hit that really tight Unity cost, I never got round to it until now. From now on, you probably know exactly what the plan is. When you look at the time, it's vassal o'clock. Unfortunately, because this origin gives you such a huge disadvantage early on, it's taken me so long to catch up to and exceed the AI that the galaxy has already begun to homogenize into federations and vassal blocks, so expansion from this point on is going to be very painful. I'm doing the standard trick of releasing a one-planet vassal, then releasing them in order to form a federation to tie my vassals into. I shall name it Mutual Military Assistance, or MMA for short. And as ever, I will take the best ascension perk in the game. This AI vassalized one of my neighbours, so I'm going to vassalize them and take the whole lot. Unfortunately, the idiot AI made this neighbour into a bulwark. I really don't want a bulwark, so I'm just going to release them and re-vassalize them as something useful instead. My economy is encountering some minor issues because I invested extremely heavily into advanced resources, and have yet to acquire sufficient vassals to pay for it all. Despite this, I am not going to stop producing battleships at any point. I need to keep producing ships. I am really against the clock here. Today I learned something new. That little trick I pulled off, releasing the bulwark and then re-vassalizing them, that did not work, as they continued converting into a bulwark in the background without my knowledge. And my economy has exploded. I'm just going to turn them into a prospectorium because honestly I really need those basic resources. Unfortunately, I have to wait a little while to do that and endure this deficit. I'm preparing to go to war with Montu over here, this fallen empire, as I did something to irritate them and they're preparing for war. I need to preempt them so I can get a total war in and take all their planets for free. The economy is fixed again, but it's wartime. My navy is large enough that even with the energy credit deficit, I can still handle them. This, admittedly, will complicate matters. Of course, in the game I play as the Challenge Run, I get a war in heaven in 2286 while still at war with the Third Fallen Empire. My plan here is to form the League of Non-Aligned Powers here and invite anyone who would join. They won't be vassals, but I'll let the awakened empires destroy them. And then I'll use the total war to go and retake their previously occupied space, either myself or one of my vassals. I'm still preoccupied cleaning up that first fallen empire. That is them dealt with now. This is just the game that keeps on giving, isn't it? They were a member of the League of Non-Aligned Powers as well, so now it falls to me to deal with their carnage, and I share a border with them directly, which is just fantastic. This is the incredibly chaotic galactic situation. Yes, more chaos please, that's what this galaxy needs right now. It is 2294 and the galaxy is in flames. I was so preoccupied cleaning up the Crisis Aspirant, I didn't even notice them going sicko mode down here. The Chosen just showed up and ate the remains of the Crisis Aspirants, and now I'm at war with them too. It just never ends. I'm finally undertaking a concerted effort to invade the Awakened Empires through my vassal space, and it's pure agony. The AI these days has this incredibly annoying propensity towards doom-stacking their planets with absurd amount of defensive armies. I've been producing xenomorph armies continuously since the War in Heaven began, and they just keep dying over and over and over again from these invasions. Furthermore, the Unbidden have arrived. Their main event hasn't popped yet, but I can see them, and they're in my vassal. I have about 8 million fleet power total, so if I play it right, I can take them. But the Awakened Empires still have a couple mil each, so I can't really afford to bring my entire navy to deal with them at once. And here they come. I've gathered enough navy in one place to start challenging their expansion. Oh, that's really bad. I wanted to go through the hyperlane, but they went through the damn hyper relay instead and ended up right on top of them. Now the focused argumenters aren't doing anything and the ships are gonna get shredded. That's so bad. That was a huge mistake on my part. Get out while you still can. Emergency measures. I'm assembling my entire remaining navy now because that was a disaster. This is another horrible engagement. I was in the middle of traveling to them and they came to me, but this is winnable. This is pretty bad. I was moving their fleets away and they sent in the reinforcements. It's still a winning fight. Now I'm actually bringing the fight to them, and this engagement range really favors me this time. They're sending reinforcements. This is getting bad. That's literally all of their remaining fleets in this one system. I really didn't want to pick this fight. It's over. There are ways I could still bring this back. I could probably rebuild a navy before the Unbidden makes it all the way to me, though I have no doubt that the War in Heaven would complicate things. I could also finish level 5 Crisis and destroy the galaxy myself, but honestly, I am done. I made this many multi-hour long recordings just for this one game. Much as I would like to see the United Freedom Collective get their happy end, I am happy to take the L here. I ran way ahead on score, unsurprisingly. This game would have been very manageable had every single thing that could happen not all happened at once. Could have still easily won had I not been an idiot with how I used my fleets, but you live and learn, and you move on. Anticlimactic ending, I know. But this was the wildest game of Stellaris I've ever played. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and stick around until next time when I tackle the next origin.